They thought framing a black teen would be easy, that no one powerful would ever notice. They forgot one thing. Her brother had the power to flip the entire courtroom upside down. Jenna Johnson never thought a quick stop at a strip mall in Charlotte, North Carolina, would put her entire future at risk. At 17, she had her eyes set on Howard University, already accepted into their pre-law program. Her teachers praised her sharp mind, her debate coach called her relentless, and her parents, both social workers, had spent years instilling in her the value of justice. That Saturday afternoon was supposed to be simple. Jenna needed a new laptop bag. Finals were approaching, and her old one had frayed at the seams. She headed to a place called Bargain Mart, a no-frills store her family had shopped at for years. Inside, the store buzzed with weekend shoppers. Kids darted between aisles, a cashier called for a price check over the intercom, and fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Jenna found a simple black laptop bag, durable but affordable, just like she needed. As she waited in line, she scrolled through her phone, checking her study group chat for updates on their upcoming mock trial competition. That's when it happened. A man in a red vest, Bargain Mart's loss prevention officer, tapped her on the shoulder. "You need to come with me," he said, his voice firm. Confused, Jenna asked why. He claimed someone had reported her slipping merchandise into her bag. Her stomach dropped. She hadn't touched anything except the bag she was about to buy. Still, she followed him past staring customers, their eyes heavy with judgment before she'd even spoken a word. In the cramped back office, the man told her to empty her pockets and bag. Hands trembling, she did. Her phone, wallet, a half-finished pack of gum, and the laptop bag, still with the security tag attached, tumbled onto the desk. The loss prevention officer frowned, as if disappointed she hadn't stolen anything. "Store policy," he muttered before calling the police anyway. The officer who arrived was polite but detached. He apologized as he cuffed her, saying it was procedure. Jenna sat in the back of the squad car, numb, watching her reflection in the glass. This wasn't supposed to happen to kids like her, kids who followed the rules, who had plans. At the precinct, they processed her for petty theft. She kept saying it was a mistake, but no one listened. They handed her a court date and released her hours later, her wrists still sore from the cuffs. That night, she cried silently into her pillow, terrified of what this would mean for her scholarship, her reputation, her future. The court date came too fast. Her parents scraped together money for a local attorney, Mr. Dawson, who seemed more interested in getting through the case quickly than fighting for her. "These things usually get dismissed," he told her. "Just stay calm." Walking into the Mecklenburg County Courthouse, Jenna held her head high. She wore her best blazer, the one she'd worn for her Howard University interview, and clutched a folder of recommendation letters and straight-A report cards like a shield. She didn't know yet that none of it would matter. At the front of the courtroom sat Judge Harold Voss, a man with a permanent scowl and a reputation for harsh sentences. When Jenna's name was called, the air in the room thickened. The judge barely glanced at her before she entered her plea of not guilty. Instead, he skimmed the arrest report with disinterest, then announced, without reviewing the store's security footage, that there was probable cause for a felony charge. A preliminary hearing was set for 2 weeks later. Felony. The word echoed in Jenna's skull. A felony would strip her of her scholarship, her dreams of law school, everything. She wanted to scream, to demand someone actually look at the evidence. But she stayed silent, tears burning behind her eyes, because she knew the system wasn't built to listen to girls like her. That night, she called the one person who could make them listen. Her brother, Marcus. Marcus Johnson wasn't just any lawyer. He was a federal prosecutor in Washington, D.C., with a reputation for dismantling corrupt systems. When Jenna called, his voice was calm, but she could hear the fury underneath. "Say nothing else to anyone," he told her. "I'm handling this." Within hours, Marcus had his team digging into Judge Voss's record. What they found was a pattern. Black and Latino defendants receiving harsher sentences, evidence being ignored, complaints buried under bureaucratic red tape. Meanwhile, Marcus called an old law school friend, Assistant U.S. Attorney Daniel Hayes, who was based in Charlotte. "I need you in that courtroom tomorrow," Marcus said. The next hearing was a blur. Jenna sat beside Mr. Dawson, who looked increasingly nervous as Daniel Hayes strode into the courtroom, his presence commanding immediate attention. Judge Voss stiffened when he saw him. "Your Honor," Daniel said smoothly, "the defense moves to submit the store's surveillance footage, which clearly shows Ms. Johnson did not commit theft, and requests immediate dismissal." Judge Voss's jaw tightened. Motion denied. The court has already ruled. Daniel didn't flinch. Then the defense moves to enter into evidence records of past judicial misconduct complaints against this court, specifically regarding the suppression of exculpatory evidence. The room went dead silent. Judge Voss's face darkened. "This is highly inappropriate." "And yet," Daniel said, his voice like steel, "here we are." Jenna held her breath. For the first time, she saw something flicker in the judge's eyes: fear. Marcus arrived in Charlotte that afternoon, and by the next morning, the case had exploded into a national scandal. News outlets picked up the story. Teen wrongfully charged, exposing judge's alleged bias. The Department of Justice announced an investigation into Judge Voss's courtroom practices. At the next hearing, the prosecutor, sweating under the sudden scrutiny, dropped the charges in the interest of justice. Jenna was free. But Marcus wasn't done. He held a press conference outside the courthouse, his voice cutting through the crowd of reporters. "This isn't just about my sister. It's about every kid who's been railroaded by a system that assumes their guilt. We're not stopping here." Within weeks, Judge Voss resigned. Over a dozen cases were reopened. Reforms were demanded in Mecklenburg County's judicial system. And Jenna? She walked into Howard University that fall, not just as a student, but as a symbol of what happens when someone refuses to be silenced. But before she left, she made one last phone call to Judge Voss. He answered, his voice wary. "You lost," Jenna said softly before hanging up. And for the first time in months, she breathed easy.